They emerged from darkness like phantoms, their vessels swallowing the stars, smooth and lethal and bristling with weapons. The Galactic Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, reduced civilizations to cinder, and enslaved every species that resisted. But when they reached Earth, they paused. Not from fear. Arrogance flowed through the Empire's veins like blood. They stopped because Earth looked broken. Nations divided, internal conflicts raging, the planet crumbling under its own weight. An easy target, perfect for conquest. The assault came fast. Satellites fell first, blinding Earth's ability to see. Then the power grids collapsed. The internet vanished. Communications networks went silent. Cities descended into darkness. Panic swept across continents like wildfire. Then the dropships arrived, ugly machines that tore through the sky and released armored warriors. The Empire expected chaos. They didn't expect organized resistance. Within hours, guerrilla units were striking back. Not government soldiers, not official armies, people. Farmers with old weapons. Teenagers flying drones they'd built themselves. Retired engineers assembling EMP weapons from salvage. The invaders laughed at first. Then their walkers started exploding. Their scouts disappeared. Their supply ships never returned. And then came a message, broadcasted across every frequency in 27 languages. This is not war. This is home defense. And we haven't even gotten serious yet. High Command dismissed it as propaganda, a desperate bluff. So they ordered Phase 2, orbital bombardment. They'd done it to other worlds before. Glass the surface, rebuild later. Except it didn't work. Somehow the nuclear weapons and plasma bombs were intercepted mid-flight by Earth's own satellites, now hacked and weaponized by civilian tech experts. The sky lit up with brilliant flashes. A new battlefield opened above their heads. Something was wrong. Admiral Varric stood on the deck of the flagship Ardent Flame, pacing. A Zenther bred for command, his species had ruled empires long before this one. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he reviewed the latest reports. Earth should have fallen by now, resources drained, population in panic, resistance scattered. Instead, Earth fought harder than any species they'd ever encountered. A lieutenant approached, scales pale with fear. Admiral, the forward fleet reports total loss. 80% of ground troops eliminated. Remaining units are surrounded. From a single continent? Varric asked. No, sir. From 6. Varric turned slowly. How many humans are we dealing with? We estimated global militia forces at less than 20 million. And now? The officer's voice shook. Over 900 million confirmed combatants. Possibly more. Civilians are fighting, sir. Children, elderly, untrained but coordinated. They're adapting faster than we can respond. Silence filled the command deck. Varric clenched his claws. His translator struggled with his native tongue, clicking and hissing low syllables. Show me the footage. The officer brought up body camera feeds. Human fighters ambushing drop squads with homemade explosives. City streets transformed into killing zones. Swarms of small quadcopters disabling armored vehicles. Resistance fighters laughing as they tore through elite Empire troops with salvaged tech. But one clip stopped them cold. A human commander, face bloodied, stood before a captured Empire general. She leaned close, whispering something. Then she let him live. She sent him back in a stolen dropship with a tracking beacon embedded in his armor. The general's ship limped back into orbit, smoke pouring from damaged engines as emergency systems guided it to the docking bay. Medics rushed forward, but the general staggered out alone, his face pale, movement stiff, haunted. Varric watched in silence. What did you see? The general swallowed hard. Everything we feared and more. Varric motioned the medics away. You were captured. You returned, explain. The general's voice cracked. They could have killed me easily. They showed me something deliberately. They wanted me to come back. What did they show you? The general raised a shaking hand toward the viewport overlooking the blue-green world below. Not an army. A mindset. They don't fight like us. No ranks, no chain of command. Every human is a general, a soldier, and a weapon all at once. Varric's eyes narrowed. That's chaos. No, sir, the general whispered. He reached into his uniform and dropped a human tablet on the table. It flickered to life, showing a video in broken galactic standard. A woman stood before a makeshift war map drawn on a cafe chalkboard. Civilians listened closely, some barely adults, some in wheelchairs. Her words were simple. They thought destroying our armies would break us. But they forgot one thing. We don't need orders to protect what's ours. Varric turned away, silent for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly, almost to himself. They're not an empire. They're a wildfire. In the ruins of what used to be Geneva, Empire enforcers crouched in a crumbling museum waiting for rescue. Their commander, a young officer named Ethan, gripped his plasma rifle tight. His squad had been ambushed 3 times in 2 hours. Once by a 12-year-old on a bicycle who dropped a grenade. Again by an old woman who collapsed a building on them. He'd never seen anything like it. Now in the dim light, shapes moved in the fog. Human silhouettes, fast, too fast, they're here. Defensive formation, Ethan barked. But it was already too late. The walls burst inward. Smoke grenades hissed. Blinding lights and thunderous shouts disoriented the troops. Then humans were on them, wearing patched armor and wielding weapons clearly built in garages. Yet they moved with precision. Ethan fired blindly. One shot clipped a human in the shoulder. The man didn't flinch. He tackled Ethan to the ground and jammed a knife against his throat. The human leaned close, face smeared with ash and sweat. Thought you broke us? We build under pressure. Ethan stared up, breathing hard. You're not military? The man laughed. Military? That's cute. He stood and let Ethan go. I fix cars for a living. Did before you bastards blew up my shop. He turned to the others. Move out. Leave the wounded. We're not executioners. Ethan watched them vanish into the smoke, dragging their injured with them, leaving nothing but broken pride and silence. Later that night, Ethan transmitted a single message to command. If what we've seen isn't their army, then may the stars have mercy when it does arrive. The Empire had always believed in overwhelming force. Crush resistance early and the rest would kneel. But Earth didn't kneel. It bared its teeth and bit back harder. Deep within the Pacific Ocean, something stirred. Not resistance fighters. Not civilians. Something trained. It began with silence, an absence of signal picked up by Empire satellites. A dead zone where communication should have been. Then the silence exploded. A burst of encrypted signals followed by dozens of heat signatures breaching the surface. Submarines. Dozens. Sleek and dark and deadly. Not civilian ships. Not government vessels either. Ghosts. Back on the ardent flame, Varric stood before a projection of Earth's oceans. New contacts appeared every minute. Ships surfacing where nothing had been detected. Transports, drones, aircraft not part of any known Earth Navy. What faction is this? He growled. Another nation? The analyst shook his head. No known nation claims them. No flags, no identifiers. But they're armed with advanced technology. Cybernetically enhanced suits. They've taken out 3 of our orbital communication relays in the last 5 minutes. Impossible, Varric muttered. You missed the bottom, sir, the analyst said quietly. Humans didn't hide their army in bunkers or bases. They buried it under the sea. Near the Mariana Trench, a massive platform rose from the depths, jet black, plated in steel and titanium alloys covered in barnacles and scars. Old but alive. Its engines ignited, casting a dull blue glow in the abyss. Inside, men and women strapped into exosuits. Their armor wasn't flashy. It was brutal, practical. Their faces marked not with medals but with loss. These were the ones who trained in silence, who waited for a day they hoped would never come. Commander L. Vance stood at the heart of the operation. Once a naval officer, now leader of Earth's unofficial last line. A military force built off the books, funded in secret, trained without limits. When the world's governments failed, they prepared. And now it was time. She looked at feeds from the surface. Cities burning. Civilians fighting with kitchen knives and homemade weapons. They weren't supposed to carry this weight, she said softly. They weren't supposed to be the first line. That was us, a younger officer nodded. Then let's take it back, Commander. Elra smiled grimly. Deploy everything. Full blackout. No warnings. No mercy. The first strike came in the sky above Europe. 3 Empire carriers hovered like predatory beasts deploying reinforcements. They didn't see the stealth drones until too late. Human-engineered, hyperfast, silent as death. The drones pierced the ship's underbellies and detonated inside their engine cores. In 30 seconds, 3 carriers became fireballs. Then came the silent rain. Kinetic rods dropped from orbit, fast enough to punch through ship armor like paper. Empire vessels began falling from the sky like wounded birds. Humans weren't fighting anymore. They were hunting. In a South American jungle, Empire troops were ambushed not by scattered rebels but by coordinated strike teams. Exosuits blurred between trees, executing clean, silent kills. One trooper managed to escape only to trip a wire, activating a carbon thread net. He was pinned, struggling as a figure stepped from shadows. Black armor, unmarked rifle. The voice from the helmet was cold. Your war just changed. Then silence again. In the Imperial War Council aboard the flagship, panic set in. Reports poured in too fast to track. Empire commanders were being hunted. Ships destroyed mid-flight. Bases razed overnight. One captain screamed across a broken comm line. They weren't hiding their army. They were training it where we weren't looking. Underwater, underground, in space. They let their civilians bleed just to bait us into a false win. Then static Admiral Varric stood motionless. So Earth had a real army and it hadn't shown up until now. They thought they'd already faced the worst. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. Across space, the Empire's communication networks fell into chaos. Messages corrupted or vanished. High command ships found themselves isolated, orbiting a planet that had suddenly stopped playing by the rules. Earth had been unpredictable from the start. But this was different. This was surgical. Calculated destruction. Admiral Varric stood at the center of the war chamber, surrounded by his top strategists, the air thick with fear masked as formality. A grizzled Noxari with implants from 20 campaigns slammed a data pad on the table. We've lost 53 ships in 20 hours. Our forward bases are dust. Our drones are being hijacked mid-flight. This isn't guerrilla warfare anymore. This is an organized military force. Varric didn't respond. His eyes were locked on a map of Earth. Red markers were vanishing by the second. Each blip was a destroyed unit, a fallen ship, a shattered battalion. What are these new units? These black armored soldiers? Another commander asked. We have no data on their command structure. No emblems. No insignia. They don't want to be known, Varric muttered. They want us to guess. Below, Earth's underground networks lit up. The last line's full force had mobilized. Strike teams hit Empire weapon convoys, intelligence bases, and drone hubs with terrifying precision. They left nothing behind. No survivors. No signals. Only messages carved into walls, etched into helmets, painted in blood. This was just our warning. In a battered farmhouse outside Warsaw, two resistance leaders met with a figure from the last line. He wore black armor, but his helmet was off, revealing a weathered human face, older but sharp. Commander Jace Nolan. He dropped a hollow drive on the table. They've got a planetary weapon in orbit. A city buster. They call it the Judgment Ray. A woman with burn scars across her jaw leaned forward. What's the plan? Jace smirked. We take it, she blinked. You're serious. We didn't come up from the bottom of the ocean to play defense. This war ends in orbit. We're going up. The Judgment Ray spun slowly in low orbit, its lens panels unfolding like petals of death. Its core glowed sickly red. One shot could vaporize an entire region. It was the Empire's trump card. Inside, the Imperial crew prepared for activation. The countdown had begun. Then alarms blared. External hull breach. System failures. Gravity loss. Explosions tore through the control room before anyone could react. 8 human operatives burst through a maintenance shaft, moving like shadows, planting charges, cutting wires, disabling everything with ruthless efficiency. A terrified Imperial tech officer backed into a corner, watching one of the black-armored figures approach. How did you even get up here? He cried. We control orbit. The human paused, looked him straight in the eye. You did. They left nothing functional. The Judgment Ray exploded into flaming debris, scattering across the upper atmosphere like burning confetti. From his command deck, Varric watched the explosion through the viewport. It was visible even from his distance. He felt coldness settle in his bones. That weapon was their fallback. Their leverage gone. Send the call, he said slowly. A lieutenant turned. Sir? Varric's voice dropped an octave. Evacuate secondary fleets. Fortify the homeworld. Send word to the Empress. You mean surrender? No, Varric growled. I mean, this isn't a conquest anymore. It's a war for survival. Down on Earth, the black-armored soldiers regrouped. In a bunker beneath Siberia, Commander Elra Vance debriefed her teams. Everyone was bruised, exhausted, but alive. She looked at her people. Most weren't military anymore. Scientists, athletes, engineers, mechanics, ex-Marines, all volunteers. All driven by something deeper than duty. You've done more in a week than any army has in a year, she said. But we're not done. Then what's next? Someone asked. Elra turned to the live satellite feed. Imperial ships once dominating the skies were now retreating, pulling back, realigning. She narrowed her eyes. They're calling for reinforcements, which means they're afraid. A pause. And fear. That's the first crack. The stars had always seemed unreachable for most of humanity, distant, mysterious, untouchable. But now they looked different. The skies weren't filled with stars anymore. They were littered with the remains of warships, burning debris streaking across the night like meteor showers. Children in war-torn cities watched them fall and whispered wishes on the trails of fire. But Earth wasn't making wishes anymore. Earth was making moves. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity took the offensive beyond its atmosphere. On the far side of the moon, hidden in shadowed craters where no telescope from Earth could see, lay Outpost Perseus. It had started as a secret research station, funded by a coalition of off-the-book science divisions from several nations. Long-disbanded governments now just memories in ash, but the outpost lived on, expanding slowly, feeding on rumors and fear, and now it became the launch pad of Earth's first counter-strike into deep space. Inside the hangars, black-hulled strike ships hummed with power. Not graceful like the Empire's vessels, these were brutalist masterpieces, jagged with armor, retrofitted with stolen alien tech, fueled by Earth's unstoppable instinct to survive. Commander Elra Vance stood before the fleet with a grim smile. Today we don't wait. Today we bring the fire to their front porch. The response was one unified thrum. Engines flared. Weapons locked. Soldiers buckled in. Then they launched. Back aboard the ardent flame, Varix paced. The news had gone from bad to worse. Imperial reinforcements were still a week away and Earth had gone quiet. Too quiet. That kind of silence meant planning. He knew it. We've underestimated them, he muttered, staring at Earth's burning edge. We made them fight like us. They learned. He was still speaking when the first strike hit. Not on Earth. On one of the Empire's outposts, Zarkon 4, a mineral-rich planet 2 systems away. Thong thought untouchable. The humans didn't invade. They erased it. Hit the power grid. Crashed the orbital controls. Nuked the command center. By the time Varix got the report, Zarkon was gone. And then came the broadcast. It played on every Imperial ship within 10 light years. A woman's voice, calm, controlled. This is Earth. You came to us with fire. Now we bring the storm. For every child buried in rubble, for every city burned, for every scream you ignored, we will burn 10 of yours. This isn't defense anymore. This is debt collection. Within a week, 4 more fringe colonies were attacked. No survivors. No ships left behind. Just wreckage and a signature. The mark of the last line, a jagged E carved into the ruins. Earth. Meanwhile, aboard a strike ship heading into deep space, Sergeant Theo Ramos stared at the empty void ahead. He was once a firefighter in Boston. His wife and daughter had died in the first wave. He hadn't spoken much since. Now he was a gunner. You ready? His commander asked. Theo didn't answer at first, then he muttered. They thought we were just scared animals. The commander nodded. They forgot that cornered animals bite hardest. Their ship broke warp speed, heading straight for an Empire fuel station the size of a small moon. No backup, no retreat, just revenge. Back in orbit, Empire morale was crumbling. Lower ranks questioned orders. Officers reported mass desertions. Whole battalions were disappearing, some defecting, others just vanishing. And deep inside the ardent flame, Admiral Varix stood alone before a massive screen. On it, a looping message from Earth played again and again. You mean that wasn't their full army? He replayed it again and again. He finally understood. It was never about numbers. It was about will, and Earth's will was endless. The Empire's homeworld, Zorath Prime, was the crown jewel of their dominion. A sprawling city planet of towering spires, atmospheric shields, and glowing highways stretching across continents. It had never been touched by war. Never seen the horror of invasion. For millennia it was untouchable. A monument to superiority, until now. In the black vacuum just beyond its security perimeter, space shimmered. Then it widened, cracked like glass, and opened into a tunnel of chaos. Earth's strike fleet burst through. Ships cobbled together with rage and ingenuity, engines screaming. Weapons primed. The last line had arrived, and they weren't here to negotiate. On Zorath Prime, sirens wailed. For the first time in recorded history, the planetary defense grid activated, Civilians panicked. Holograms of reassurance flickered over the city. Everything was under control, they broadcast. But behind the scenes, the Imperial High Council was in freefall. The humans are here. Here, one counselor shouted, slamming a clawed hand against the war table. That's 2 systems beyond their capacity. They must have stolen FTL tech. That's the only explanation. Admiral Varix appeared on the holo projector, his face grim and older somehow, like the last few weeks had dragged centuries out of him. They didn't steal anything, he said. They earned it. Down on the planet's surface, chaos bloomed. Evacuation shuttles tried to launch. Anti-air defenses lit the sky, but nothing prepared them for what landed in the center of the capital. A black meteor, sleek and pulsing with light, crashed into the Emperor's Square. It wasn't a weapon. It was a drop pod. The doors hissed open. Earth's elite emerged. Commander Elra Vance led the charge, flanked by soldiers with no names and no fear. They moved with perfect silence through smoke and fire toward the heart of an empire that had once laughed at the idea of Earth resistance. Now they weren't laughing. Now they were screaming. In a marble-walled chamber at the top of the Spire of Dominion, the Empress of the Empire stood watching the footage unfold. She had never imagined this moment. No one had. Earth had been seen as primitive, petty, divided, but something had shifted. She turned to her advisors. What are we looking at? A trembling aide replied. Tactical deployment of rogue specialists. Coordinated orbital bombardments. Cyber warfare disruption across our systems. They're treating this as retribution. The Empress narrowed her eyes. How many? We estimate less than 300 entered the capital. But ma'am, they've already brought down 2 defense towers and hijacked our command grid. She went quiet. 300 humans were bringing an empire to its knees. In the wreckage of the Imperial Ministry, Elra moved through halls of shattered glass and fire-scorched banners. They weren't targeting civilians. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to humiliate, to leave a message so loud that every star system would hear it echo for generations. Elra planted a device on the central broadcast node. Her voice spread across the Empire's systems, hijacking every screen, every communication hub, every corner of their digital dominion. You took our world for a soft target. You killed our people thinking we'd die quiet. You were wrong. You thought our resistance was chaos. It was strategy. You thought our pain was weakness. It was fuel. This isn't a victory speech. This is a promise. You will never forget Earth. Then the signal cut. The planetary grid went dark. Admiral Varix sat alone in the ruins of the orbital command center, breathing in the smoke of his empire's fall. He had underestimated them at every turn, and now he understood why they never sent their full army first. Because humans didn't need one, every farmer, every mechanic, every grieving parent. That was their army, and the ones who came next, they were the Reapers. The smoke rising from the capital of Zorath Prime painted the skies in shades of shame. For the first time in generations, the Empire's throne world, once considered the heart of order and power, bled. Its streets, lined with marble and gold, were reduced to scorched concrete and shattered glass. Its towering monuments to conquest lay crumbled, their polished surfaces now cracked, smeared with ash and fury. From the roof of the former Ministry of Galactic Policy, Commander Elra Vance stood tall. Her armor bore the grime of war, the carbon scoring of near-death strikes, but her posture was unshaken. Behind her, dozens of Earth's finest lined the edge of the rooftop, looking down at a trembling city that had never known fear until now. Elra activated her comms. Status? Targets neutralized, came a voice from her left. Sergeant Theo Ramos, face partially hidden behind a visor. Broadcast towers disabled. Local defense net offline. The people are unarmed. Orders? She turned her gaze toward the horizon where Empire citizens, hundreds of thousands of them, were gathered in the central plaza. Some clutched children, some wept. Others looked up angry, confused, terrified. They had always believed they were the superior race, the chosen rulers of the stars. Their propaganda had never prepared them for this. For humans to stand over them. No more bombs, Elra said. No more blood. Let them feel what it's like to listen. She nodded to a tech behind her. The screen mounted on the central spire crackled to life. This time there were no threats, no battle cries. Just the image of Earth, a slowly rotating blue and green sphere followed by the faces of the dead. Civilians, children, medics, grandmothers, soldiers. Their photos faded one by one as the camera panned to Elra. She stepped forward and spoke, not like a conqueror but as a survivor. You don't know our names, but you killed us anyway. You didn't ask questions. You just landed and started taking burning, laughing. She paused, letting her words settle in the ears of every Zarothian watching. We were doctors, artists, students. We raised crops. We fixed roads. We laughed with our kids. We weren't your enemies, but now we are, because you made us one. Her voice dropped into a cold, sharp edge. The moment you stopped seeing us as people, your empire fell, and now we return the favor. We are not here to rule. We're not here to enslave. We came to show you what happens when you push a species to its breaking point. Elra took off her helmet. Her face was tired. Her eyes carried the weight of 1,000 funerals. We are Earth and we don't forgive, but maybe, just maybe, we'll let you learn. The screen went dark. Below, the murmuring began. The Empire's citizens weren't sure what to feel. Anger, shame, guilt. The lies they'd been fed from birth crumbled in real time. They had seen the images, the ruins of human cities, the craters, the corpses. Some raged, some cried, some turned their backs in silence, some, for the first time, questioned. In the Imperial Council's underground bunker, one of the few places still untouched by war, the Empress sat in silence. Her most loyal guards were dead. Her aides gone, she was alone, surrounded by relics of her ancestors, portraits of conquerors, statues of tyrants, all meaningless now. The door hissed open. Admiral Varric stepped in, blood on his uniform, no escort behind him. He didn't kneel. They've won, he said simply. The Empress's lip curled. They're savages. They're survivors, Varric corrected. And we were fools. He dropped something at her feet. A small glass case. Inside it was a single bullet, primitive, outdated by any standard. But engraved on it were the names of 50 children found in the ruins of a human school. That's what they fought with, Varric said, turning to leave. That's what beat us. She didn't answer. She couldn't. She knew it was over. Back outside, the human fleet began its slow retreat. They didn't stay. They didn't demand tribute or territory. They'd proven their point. Earth wasn't prey. Earth was patient wrath. As the dropships ascended, Elra stood at the edge of the roof one last time. Theo approached her. You think they'll change? She asked. She sighed. Not all of them. Some will try. Most won't, but now they know. Theo looked up at the stars. So what now? She smiled faintly. Now we go home and rebuild. And with that, Earth's army disappeared into the stars once more, not as conquerors, but as the warning written in fire across a tyrant sky. The journey back to Earth was quiet, not silent. Engines hummed and systems beeped. But there was a stillness inside every ship that couldn't be touched by sound. The soldiers didn't celebrate. No victory chants, no toasts. Just heavy breaths and the weight of what they had done. Commander Elra Vance sat alone in the command pod, staring at data logs from Zorath Prime. Not battle stats, not casualty reports. Just footage of civilians looking up in silence. Children hiding behind ruined statues. A population that had for the first time been shown what their empire had truly become. There was satisfaction in their success, but no joy. Earth had won, but not without scarring itself in the process. She tapped the console, replaying her own speech, her voice echoing back at her. We are Earth and we don't forgive. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, but maybe we should have. 2 weeks later, the first ship re-entered Earth's atmosphere, slicing through clouds over the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't met with a parade. No confetti. No brass band. Just people. Thousands waiting at makeshift landing zones, watching with sunburnt eyes and hearts caught between pride and grief. When Elra stepped off the transport in what used to be southern France, the crowd didn't cheer. They parted slowly, quietly, like they were afraid she might shatter. She didn't speak. She just nodded and walked straight through them. In the crowd, someone whispered, "That's the one who burned the Empire." Another whispered back, "That's the one who saved us." Across the planet, rebuilding had already begun. Not with governments, not yet. They were still too fractured. But communities had risen in their place. Farmers planted in scorched soil. Teachers set up blackboards in tents. Engineers fixed water lines with scraps. In South America, Sergeant Theo Ramos returned to the ruins of his home. His street was gone. The fire had left nothing but bone and ash, but he found the spot where his daughter's swing used to hang. He planted a sapling there, just a tiny thing with half-dead leaves, but it stood. That was enough. He didn't cry. He hadn't since the invasion began. But he stood there for hours. In New Nairobi, a child played with a model of an Empire ship made from scrap metal. He threw it against a stone wall, laughed when it shattered, and shouted to no one in particular, "We're Earth, we don't lose." An older man sitting nearby said gently, "We don't hate either." The child paused. Didn't understand. Not yet, but maybe someday. Far above Earth, in what used to be an abandoned orbital station, the remnants of the last line met one last time. Elra stood at the center of a long metal hall, her armor finally off, revealing deep circles under her eyes and faded bruises beneath her jaw. 100 operatives surrounded her. Each had fought across planets. Each had lost something. Each had seen what the Empire truly was, and now they had to decide what came next. "This isn't a command," she said quietly. "It's an invitation. You've all given more than any soldier ever should. You don't owe Earth a damn thing. But if you want to stay, help build something real, help teach the next ones how to fight without becoming like the Empire, we'll need you." No one moved at first. Then Theo stepped forward. "I'll stay. I've seen what we're capable of when we're cornered. I want to see what we can do when we're free." One by one, the others joined him. Not because they had to, but because they chose to. And in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where the Empire's shattered fleets limped to hidden bases, a new truth began to whisper through the stars. Humans weren't weak. They weren't fractured. They weren't prey. They were a storm that rose from the ashes of arrogance. They were a warning to any empire that believed war could be won with arrogance and numbers alone, and etched into the hull of every last line ship in a language older than any empire was a simple phrase. "You mean that wasn't their full army?" The galaxy would never forget that line, because it wasn't just a question. It was a promise, a threat, and a truth. Earth had never needed a full army, just enough rage to stand and the will to finish what was started.